Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Train podcast series. I am Joseph Ward and joined by my homie, Mr. Patrick Aldarius Irvin. What's going on, Mr. Patrick Aldarius Irvin?
You've been pretty consistent with the Aldariuses lately.
That's your new middle name.
I see. You used to change it up, but now you kind of lock in on. We're gonna have to have a conversation about why Aldarius.
Branding. That's it. Just branding. All right, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Me and Warren Buffett had a conversation. Just all you need to know. Money, money, money. But anyway, the Freedom Train podcast series is brought to you by PAX Inc. That's PACTSINC. And PAX Inc. is a Black development organization aimed at developing the Black community to its maximum potential through a focus on education and economics with a trace of hard work, honesty, and integrity. For more information, make sure you visit their website at www.pactsinc.org. That way you can learn more about the organization, their code of conduct, how you yourself can become a member, or how you can donate, how you can get involved in their initiatives. There's a Learning Center tab, and if you hover your mouse over that Learning Center, or if you're on your phone, you click Learning Center. There's a drop-down box with various resources that are very, very, very practical and useful for you. Now, the main event or the main thing we want to talk about is this Amazon Smile program. So PAX Inc. is a part of the Amazon Smile program. So if you go to amazonsmile.com, you'll be able to register with the program. Registering with the program, it allows you to pick a nonprofit organization that you will want to support. So you can support PACTSINC.org. So every time you make a purchase on Amazon, you will be able to support that organization because a portion of your proceeds will go to the organization. So Amazon.com, you register, and every time you go to buy things, AmazonSmile.com. Same thing as Amazon.com. Go to AmazonSmile.com. Every time you want to buy something, and every time you buy it, you'll be supporting somebody. So do that, AmazonSmile.com. Ain't that right, Pat?
I ain't hear nothing you said because I tuned out after about 30 seconds, which makes me our typical listener. I told you that thing too long, man. It's too long. You need a checklist to scroll the screen so you can say, all right, everybody, if you want to support, if you want to blah, 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 if you want to blah, 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 check the scrolly. And then while the scrolling, you could be talking about something else, man. It's too much. It's too much.
See, y'all, see what I have to deal with, Ms. Dunn? See what I have to deal with. I'm trying to be a good person, but this is what I got to deal with. Okay, so Patrick, you're funny, man. You're funny. But anyway,
and you can handle it.
I'm trying to be nice to him because you're here. Okay. So, but let's introduce our guest. So, if you are a newcomer to the Freedom Train podcast series, you're in for a treat. But I will encourage you to go to our website and be able to find our previous episode, my previous interview. But this lady is a definite joy to have within our community and a joy to know. She's an author, a writer, a mother, a wife, just a person who, when you walk in the room, they just light up the room because she has a great spirit. She has that great smile and a great energy that she brings to everything that we do. And so I found out that she's releasing her latest book, and I was interested because I saw the title and the subtitle, and I read a little bit, and I saw the commercial, and I got excited. I felt like one of those movie trailers. I said, okay, so I need to be a part of knowing more about what's going on. So we have on our podcast returning Miss Waletta Mason Dunn. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you so much, Patrick. I appreciate you guys inviting me to be a guest on the Freedom Train podcast. I am just amazed at all that you do for our community, how you provide the voices, the connections, the resources for our Black community. You guys are so young and your work is being amplified and it is strengthening our community. Thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for those words. It mean a lot because
you're welcome.
Because for a while we thought nobody was listening. So
So
thank you.
Oh, we're
so
listening.
this
We're
is
listening.
where we I'm gonna tell the listeners, right? If y'all are wondering why we laughing, it's because Joe just gave a series of horrible bad dad jokes, and I'm gonna cut them all out. But they was lame, they was corny, but that's why we all laughing. It's all Joe's fault.
They know you lying because they know I do good bad dad jokes. Okay.
But we love you for it.
So, Patrick, you have the first question, my good man. Let's kick this conversation off.
So, Miss Dunn,
Yes.
the first question is the same as you know, we got a lot of people that listen to the show and they not cool. They don't know who our guests are because they not cool, and it ain't their fault they not cool. They just haven't been exposed to real coolness. So that's where we come in to let them know, if you want to be down with the cool kids, these is the people you need to know and why. So, with that being said, can you help the non-cool people who are trying to be cool understand who you are, and why you chose the path that you chose to be, so that they can become cool? Mhm,
I
mhm.
understand. Pretty good. I am Waletta Dunn, Waletta Mason Dunn. I am a wife. I've been married to my husband, Donald Dunn, for 36 years. I'm a mother.
Congratulations.
We have two beautiful adult children, Ashley Dunn, my daughter, and Michael Dunn, my son. I am a self published author. I publish Christian fiction. And I write stories about Christian living, and my stories address social issues and social justice issues. I I earned my undergraduate degree at an HBCU in Tyler, Texas, Texas College, and I earned my master's degree at the University of Oklahoma. I let's see, I chose to write Christian fiction because of my relationship with Christ. I hope and I pray that my stories will directly or indirectly add insight to my readers' understanding of life, of faith, and of God. And I want them to be able to connect their pain and passion to their purpose.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And she does a good job of doing that. Those great stories. I can sit there and listen to you
Well,
telling
thank
stories
you.
all day. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, we had a lot of challenges, like everybody in the world,
Yes.
because we had something called this COVID-19 happen.
Mhm.
It For a lot of people, it came out of nowhere. Pat and I, we saw it coming. We the nerds. We the handful of nerds who knew it was coming. but but for a lot of people, it came out of nowhere, and it disrupted our normal way of living. Whatever the norm was, it's not that anymore. Even though we're trying to get back
Right.
to it as much as possible, it's been disrupted. But as an author, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who gives herself to the people, a servant, COVID-19 changed a lot of the ways we existed, changed a lot of the ways we produced our materials, or we even presented our materials. So, for you personally, how did the pandemic affect you? But most importantly, because you have this book out now, why didn't you allow the pandemic to stop you from reaching your goals?
That's a good question. You're right. The pandemic changed the way we did life. It changed life as we knew it. We were forced inside of our homes, and we were cut off from friends and family. My family is my children are one is in St. Louis, the other is in North Carolina. My other part of my family is in Louisiana, and I'm used to visiting. I was unable to visit for I haven't seen my family in Louisiana since before the pandemic. As an author, I wasn't covered by the government's financial support schemes. I was hit. with cancellations such as book events. I couldn't go touch and feel and see my readers. I was unable to go to festivals and launch books, couldn't do book signings. There was there was the all of a sudden there was a presence of my husband, which he was in my workplace, which used to be just my workplace here in the house, and he was here now at work. And for the first few weeks it was an adjustment, but we were able to find our little groove and really enjoy being together all day, every day. And it was nice. And we had to learn, as an author, I had to do things differently. Even though I was blessed to be able to work on several projects during the pandemic, and I was able to begin several projects. I was able to complete a novel, which is the novel that's coming out for such a time as this. Now, the last question you asked me was, why didn't I let the pandemic stop me from reaching my goals? And why would I let the pandemic stop me from reaching my goals? I think about the goals didn't change. I still wanted to write books. I wanted to reach people and meet new readers. And so the goals didn't change. It was just the way I went about reaching my goal.
Okay.
I continue to write books and add insight to my readers' understanding of life, of faith, and God. Instead of meeting them in brick and mortar places, I used Zoom to reach out to readers. I used technology, all kinds of technologies. I was definitely spending more time in front of my computer writing books, and that was nice. I had more time to research. I did interviews with different people who held the same occupation as people in my novels. So I was able to interview them online as well. We're going to always have setbacks, and circumstances will always cause difficulty. But what would happen if we turn those setbacks into a comeback? Or what if we took those stumbling blocks and use them as stepping stools to reach for our goals? There's no reason why we have to stop reaching for the goals. Just have to do it a different way.
Right. Now I love that mindset though, because it's like, well, why would I? But that's the greatest mindset to have. It's because and the reason why I asked that question, because there are a lot of people who the pandemic was an excuse for them to not necessarily move forward or continue pursuing what they wanted to pursue. And yes, for some people, the pandemic literally set them back. But that, like you said, that setback doesn't necessarily mean you're out. You're down for the count. That just means you might have to push a little hard to get where you need to go, but keep that mindset of, well, why wouldn't I pursue my goals? That's the greatest mindset to have.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I agree.
See, Patrick, you just learned something new.
I did.
I told you you was gonna learn something today.
I did. I learned something from both of you guys, actually.
Wait, look.
Oh.
What?
Nothing. I'm just.
I'm being positive.
I know. I was gonna mess with you, but I said no. We're gonna keep this positive moment.
Yeah, let's keep it positive. Because any other day, I would have complimented her
and insulted me. Right? I know.
No,
Positive.
not insulted. Stop. No, look, Joe, this ain't about. Why you keep making this about us?
Move on.
We got a guest.
Move on.
So, looking through the notes that I typed because I'm lying and Joe sent them to me. It says here that you worked as a counselor in the military for 20 years?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My husband was in the military for 20 years, and as I traveled with him, I worked as a counselor.
I got you. Well, I still have a tremendous amount of respect for anybody, the individual, the veteran, and the spouse that could go through 20 years of the military and come out the other side. Because I did 8 years, and it ain't as easy
Oh,
as people make it seem. It is not.
yeah.
And I
Well, thank
saw a lot of
you.
veterans and spouses not make it out of the other side, not make it 20
Mhm.
years. So that is insert hand clap, fat guy in the shirt.
There you go.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
did that, but do you use that experience to write any of your stories or to develop any of your characters? Like, are any of your characters based off people that you may have met or conversed with during that time period?
Of course, yes, yes. First of all, let me say thank you for your service.
Oh,
Appreciate
thank you.
that.
Thank
Yes.
you.
My job as a counselor for the military was to represent whatever school I was working with, represent that school to the military. So as we served, as he served in the military those 20 years, we moved about every 3 years we moved. And so I've met a
Mhm.
lot of people. I've had a lot of experiences. I keep a journal. I have always kept a journal, and I would write down events. I write down thoughts and feelings. I sometimes I might even just describe the setting where I am. And so I have books of thoughts and memories of different places. Now, when I'm writing a book and I have a character in mind, I can reach back to the crevices of my mind or go back to one of my journals and pull out the characteristics of the people that I have met during my journey and use that to develop a character, to develop characters. A lot of my books are set at military bases. Um, a lot of my stories are about the experiences that I've had as we traveled and the different people. I met so many different people with different stories. They've come from different backgrounds. I met so many different kinds of people. And that was one of the ways that I learned. You know, everybody didn't grow up with the same experiences that I had. And I love that about the military and life in general. You just get to know and appreciate other people and the stories that they have to bring. Now, I when I'm writing a book, I will. The characters are no longer those people that I met, but some of the traits of those people become part of the characters. And of course, the stories, the experiences that I've had, I change those, I embellish those a little bit, but there's a little bit of everything and every piece, everywhere I've gone in all of my stories.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah, I've worked at some interesting places, and I've been saying it for a while that to
Hmm.
write a book full of characters, but I know what you mean as far as picking up characters over time. Now, I don't know what you mean from a counseling perspective. So I'm kind of just curious as a counselor in the military, what was that experience like?
Well, I worked with Marines mostly, and they were junior enlisted Marines. And so when a Marine gets ready to go into civilian life or go into school, they can take some of the things that they've learned in the Marine Corps and actually get college credit for it.
Uh-huh.
But they're not equipped to know how to translate that into college credit. So my job was to find out their goals and take those goals and find out what we had to offer them. Because let's just say if you were a Marine and you were in the infantry, you can't get college credit for infantry, but there are other things, there's other ways that you can apply it. Also, the young military, they're not quite sure. They're entitled to financial assistance, tuition assistance is what it's called, but they don't know that part of it. So my job was to let them know what funds they were entitled to and to help them apply that toward the degree, to help them also um, follow the curriculum that was that's provided. Sometimes they, just like me, when I moved around every 3 years, they'd move around, and so they can lose credit having to transfer so often. So I would
Right.
help them take that information from every school and apply it toward their degree because they're serving our country. They should be entitled to some assistance from us.
Okay. Now that's excellent. Giving people life skills, giving people direction where
Right.
they need to go. I don't think oftentimes people really understand how many how much of reality people may be missing or how many skills they may be missing, even though they may specialize in something or be in a specific place. Because going to college, saying all these people come into college with you, and then you get all this information. But then when you get out, you realize how much information you really didn't get about the real world. And
Right.
so that's what someone
Exactly.
like you comes to help bridge that gap. Okay. Okay. So that's what that's but it take a warm person to do that though. It takes somebody who's patient and thoughtful to really sit down with somebody, because you got to be patient with people, and then just being able to come up with ideas to help them help themselves. So it takes a great person to do that.
No, thank you. Thank you. I think a lot of my experience as a mother, um, I can't turn the mothering thing off. I just can't. So a lot of that helped me to deal with and help the Marines as well. And my appreciation, because I was a Marine wife and I understand what it means to have to start over with everything. Every 3 years, you're in a new home. If you're going to school, you're at a new school. Everything is new and you have to start over. So if you don't have a direction or a path to take, it's like starting from scratch every 3 years.
Right. Okay. 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 That makes sense. That's good. That's good. All right. So you have that experience, and you said you did use some of that experience in writing some of your books. So over the
Yes.
time, you've authored 6 total books. Your latest book, and I love the title, is For Such a Time as This. That's your latest book. So not necessarily going fully into the book just yet, but does this book, For Such a Time as This, have a connection with any of your previous books? Because I know the last time we talked, some of your books were connected. But is this book connected to any of your previous
Yes.
books? If so, how is it connected? And if it's not connected, then how does this book stand alone?
Okay, it is a standalone. There are some similarities in that it is a Christian fiction. And the title itself, From Such a Time as This, was taken from a scripture in the Bible. And it deals with the social justice issue of school to prison pipeline. It's similar because it gives, I hope, to educate more people on the topic, and also encourage people, let them know there's always I just believe that there's always a light at the tunnel. Now getting there is a different story. We got to get there. So other than that, it is a standalone. There are none of the characters in this story are in any of the other books.
Okay. Okay. And so for the, because I like the title, this title sounds like it's going to be a movie or something someday. So for such a time as
Yay!
this,
Let's hope.
it does sound like a movie. But so how did you come about choosing this particular title? Like, I know you said you got it out of the Bible, but there's a lot of words, there's a lot of
Mhm.
sayings, there's a lot of things that you can pick. Because
Mhm.
this is a great title. So how did you see this? How did this stand out from anything else that you were looking at?
Okay. Well, I think that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was speaking at a church in Ringgold, Louisiana, back in the woods in the country. And there was another speaker there. Her name was Daryl Joy Ellis. And she stood up and she spoke about the school to prison pipeline. And I was amazed. I was embarrassed, first of all, because I hadn't heard of it. And then as I listened to her, I started to doubt. I'm thinking, how can something like this actually happen? Is this true? And so after that church service, I did more research on the topic, and the more I found out, the more I wanted to know. And so as as I was researching, I thought, now, if I can't be the only one who doesn't know about the school to prison pipeline, and I said I wanted to write a story about it. So of course I got ready to write a story, but you have to have a storyline, a purpose, a plot. And so with that, I took some of the background from my military experiences, and I wrote this story. It's about a young girl, Keisha Jackson. She's 14 years old. She's a military brat. Her father was killed in war, and so her mother is still active duty Marine Corps. She's an officer, and she is living a quiet and peaceful life. And then everything changes. Her mother is sent overseas, and then Keisha has to go live with her grandparents at a new state, new school, new church. Everything's brand new. When she gets to her new school, she's a minority there at the school, and the new principal is more concerned about her job than she is about the students. Keisha, well, I don't want to give too much out, but Keisha accidentally breaks one of the zero tolerance school policies. And with that, she's funneled out of the school system into the juvenile justice system. And of course, then that opens the door to the prison system. And so the story is about her choice. She has a decision to make. Is she going to um, muddle in the injustice of it all, or is she going to be a conduit for change? And in order to find out, you have to read the book.
Cliffhanger.
Right, right, right. Oh, that sounds good. I'm starting to get comfortable in there. Like, tell us more. And that's cool. That is cool. Yeah. So, uh, so because this prison, I mean, the school to prison pipeline. Let me say it right first time. The school
Mhm.
to prison pipeline. All right. Um, it's something that I learned about, I think maybe late high school, maybe college. So it's not something that we grew up knowing about all of our lives. So it's interesting
Right.
that you write about it, but also like within this book, because you give us a little snippet of it. But from your perspective, what what should readers expect to gain more? I know they're going to learn more about the school to prison pipeline, but outside of that, what can they expect from reading this book?
Well, yes, you're right. They will learn more about the school to prison pipeline. They'll learn about how the system was set up, is set up, so that certain groups of individuals will be funneled into the school to prison pipeline. And once we're of our, it's like in the military. You go off to war. First of all, you need to know who the enemy is. You're going to need to know what the tools of warfare are, so that you can be prepared to fight. Hopefully my readers will become aware of some of the tools of the enemy, and the enemy to me is racism. That's the enemy. So some of the tools are the ways that racism is set up to systematically work against us. And just because it's set up that way doesn't mean it has to work. There are things that we can do to prepare ourselves and prepare our children and protect our children. And it's like, don't just hand yourself over to them. Be prepared to fight for it. And I don't mean necessarily, rioting and things like that. I mean, get your mind ready. There are things that you can do to prepare your mind and be ready to don't give them a reason.
Right.
Don't give the enemy a reason to be against you. So hopefully the book will. It's a sad fact, but in order to fight, you have to know the enemies and their weapons of warfare. And the Bible does say that our weapons are not. We fight not against. Uh, we fight against principalities, and I think that the whole idea of racism is a principality that we can fight against.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So go ahead, Joe.
No, I just want to say I tell you that all the time, but you don't be listening to me. So I hope you're listening now. So
I'm not, well, I'm not listening to you. I'm listening to her though. So, because unlike you, she know what she talking about. So,
I walked into that one. I take it. I walked
yeah,
into that one.
yeah. So, um, for those who may not know, and really for Joe, because sometimes he be sitting in the interviews pretending like he know what's happening, but he don't really know what's happening. So, for people like Josephus, um, can you give them a brief, like real brief snippet of the um what the prison to the school to prison pipeline is, and then can you talk a little
Sure.
bit about why you chose to write about it? And I'm really interested to hear because when you talk about the school to prison pipeline, people really regularly talk about it from the standpoint of black boys. So I'm really interested to hear you put a spin on it. You talked about it from the perspective of
Okay.
a young black woman. So or a young black girl. So I'm interested in that. If you would, Joseph, please listen.
Well, the school to prison pipeline is a disturbing national trend wherein children are funneled out of the public school system and into juvenile and criminal justice systems. And oftentimes it's for minor infractions. Now, my book specifically talks about zero tolerance policies. I do agree, and zero tolerance policies were set up to protect the schools and the kids in school. And I understand that we've had a lot of school shootings and something has to be done. And I understand that. But it's also, those policies have also adversely affected minority children, both boys and girls, and those disabled individuals. And I chose to write the story about a young black girl because first of all, I was a young black girl, and I understand how we were expected to behave a certain way. We're always we have this label that we're more mature, and to some degree we girls mature faster than men than boys, of course, but they do not consider, and when I say they, there's some of the school systems and also the zero tolerance policies do not consider the individuals when they are handing out punishment. So in other words, someone who brings, for instance, a fingernail file to school is considered to have brought a weapon to school, and they will receive the same punishment as someone who brought a gun to school, who wanted to shoot up the place. Now, is that fair? We need to consider the circumstances. You have to take each child individually, and that's what that's what my story is about. Recently, so as in my research, I found out some of the things that were happening all across the nation in Spring Valley High School in Columbia. There was a young black girl who witnessed an altercation between the SRO and another black girl. When she spoke up against that, she was arrested because her infraction was that she was disturbing the classroom because she spoke up. Now, in that case, we really need to consider that individual and what's going on with that child, and what was her intent? And have been children who have been punished or sent away to juvenile detention center for bringing, like I said, a fingernail file. There have been different kids who have been, because of their behavior, let's just say a disabled child who doesn't, that's just the way they behave. They're not trying to disrupt the classroom, but because the teachers aren't prepared, they don't know how to handle that. And so they're sent to the principal's office, and the principal doesn't, in some cases, the principal doesn't have the authority. They have, because it is a zero tolerance policy and it says you cannot disturb the class, then they have to call the SROs in that case. So the story is just to make us think about the pros and cons. It can't be just cut straight across the board like that. We have to consider the individual children. And I guess I'm giving a lot of information, but we also need to, those kids who are sent away to the juvenile justice system, they can, or kids that are suspended, they miss school. And once they miss school, they're behind. And when they come back, it's difficult to catch up. And
Right.
a lot of kids lose interest in school because of that. The dropout rate. And so I'm a proponent for restorative policies to, so that we provide ways for those kids to continue to be educated so that they can't get behind, or ways that they can catch up so they won't lose interest. It's a biological fact that young kids, their brains are not totally developed.
Right.
So we have to remember that, and we can't just throw them into prison with adults. I
That's
hope
a
I answered your
great
question.
point.
I went way off.
Mm-hmm.
No, that
You
was
absolutely is.
you broke it down, but that's a great point. Um, I'm always frustrated of adults expecting children to behave like adults, but you understand they're children, but you don't understand why they're not behaving like adults. Those two ideas don't line up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do feel like adults have to be a lot more
Mm-hmm.
patient. I don't disagree. I mean, I do
Sure.
disagree with a lot of the zero tolerance policies because of how, like you
Mm-hmm.
say, they're just so broad and for the slightest things. Like you can't even be a child and protect yourself
Mm-hmm.
anymore these days. You're going to be thrown away. I so help me understand more. They are they are sending disabled children to the SRO.
Yes, in some instances, it's just the way the policy is set up. When A happens, the SRO has to be called in, or when A happens, you send directly to the principal's office, and the principals have these restrictions that they have to follow. If such and such is involved, then you have to bring in the sheriff department has to come in, and you have to separate the child from the school. So why don't we just change some of the policies so that the principals have a little more discretion, or so that the teachers have a little more discretion? Now, I'm not trying to take away from the teachers, because I understand that they're there to teach, and it's difficult when you have a child who is disrupting a class. Well, let's think of different ways to address that instead of sending them off into the system, putting them in the system, because it costs more to send a child into the system than it does to educate them or teach them or provide them with an alternative way to behave. We just have to have restorative measures.
Right, right. What say you, Pat? Because you working in homeschooling systems. Um, how do like what's your thoughts on the zero tolerance things, and how is that similar or different from what goes on in the homeschooling circles?
Well, I know homeschooling here in North Carolina, there really isn't much of a circle involving the school to prison pipeline because parents teach their kids. Um, but I've been very much involved in the public school systems here in Charlotte, even back when my kids were involved in it, and I had a lot of issues with the no tolerance instructions, and they're not just that. I got a lot of problems with the public school system in general, but I agree with you guys. I agree with you guys. I think that the people that are on the front lines, teachers, need to be given more authority. And that authority needs to be equally distributed all the way up the chain. Nobody should be obligated to follow a set of commands that requires them to disregard the individual, like Ms. Dunn said, in those situations. That's just not right. I'm against it in the judicial system for adults, where judges have to follow these policies and they can't be a
Mhm.
judge anymore. And I'm against it in the school system, where teachers and principals have to follow those policies. And even to that, the only thing I kind of disagree with some teachers on is I feel like the disciplinary issues that come up in classrooms are those are still teaching moments. That's a part of being a teacher.
Okay.
You can't just say, you're disrupting the class and I don't want to have to deal with it and I shouldn't have to deal with it because I have my lesson plan. No, that is a part of your job as a teacher. That's a part of anybody's job as a teacher to deal with those disciplinary issues, because a disciplinary issue is a teachable moment. Be a teacher in those moments too. Anyways, thank you for that, Joseph. But this ain't about me.
I'm just curious because you have experience with the homeschooling, so I'm just curious.
No,
Okay,
man, I don't be liking them
context.
kids, man. I punch them in the face, man. We get busy down here, man. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Everybody listening, I do not be punching kids in the face. I promise. I
Yeah.
promise.
So, you you wrote this story about a young lady.
Yes.
Most like Pat said earlier, most of the time when we're learning about or even hearing about anything from school to prison pipeline, it's about a young man. From so, have you found significant information to show that there's a good number of young women who have been affected by the school to prison pipeline? And like what really made you hone in on focusing on a young lady in the story rather than just the norm where another young man is being caught up in the school to prison
Right.
pipeline?
Yes. Well, according to the data from the Education Department Office for Civil Rights, Black girls make up about 16% of America's female student population, but
Uh-huh.
they account for more than one third of all the female arrests that take place on our school campuses. And they're being arrested frequently or suspended, and then they're discouraged from their education. And that's alarming numbers to me, which made me want to write a story about it and bring more awareness that it is happening to the young Black boys, but it's also happening to the young Black girls. And anytime it
Mhm.
happens to anybody, and it's anytime a rule has um, this this disparate impact on someone, it's
Right.
not a good thing. We need to do something about it. We need to look
Mhm.
at it again. Disparate impact on someone. Yes, we need to go ahead and take a look at that and find alternative ways to fix it.
What I really like about you taking that different approach is that I hope that it causes people to look at other things that are typically associated one way and look at them other
Mm-hmm.
ways. Like, what else is this?
Sure.
Be- Because one of the things that I've noticed as I do my own research and study and trying to figure out how things work and why this is over here and not over there is that it's really hard to find anything in America that only impacts black men and doesn't impact black women, or only impacts black women and
Sure.
doesn't impact black men, with the exception of, childbirth stuff. All right, all you technical tests out there, I get it. Black men are not giving birth, so we don't have to deal with that racism. We get it. But generally speaking, um, but it's funny to me that we kind of like pigeonhole topics onto certain segments of the community instead of looking at its total impact on the community. We were talking
Sure.
about this when we were talking about rape amongst children in the community.
Yeah.
And it is primarily seen as a black girl issue, which black women are no disputing that,
Right.
primarily the ones getting raped. But when you start talking about black boys, especially young boys being raped, it's kind of a conversation that's not really had. Why do you think that we do that? Why do we lock social issues into certain segments of the community and pretend like it doesn't happen to anybody else?
That's a very good question. I think that because, well, first of all, when we look at the numbers and we see that the majority of any segment is being hurt, then of course we want to go and help that segment because it seems like that's
Hmm.
what the immediate um, demand calls for. But we also have to remember that it's not that segment alone, that there are other people who are being hurt. And just like you said, in as far as rape goes, it is not just girls. It's not just girls. There are boys who have been raped who are hurting, and we have to address their concerns. And sometimes we have to look at it a little differently because they have different issues when it comes to being raped and the stigma that is attached to it. So we do have to look at each segment and consider the circumstances that surround
Right.
that surround that segment and address those as well.
Right. I think another contributing factor to that is people don't do what you did is go look at the numbers and look at the data and the statistics. People follow narratives, and a narrative may be based off something that has truth in it, but not necessarily telling the full truth or the full
Hmm.
story. And so you have a narrative and then you have the information and they don't line up. And then that's when you have people with conflict because like, no, this is what it really is. And it's like, well, no, this is what the numbers are.
Hmm.
And so that's one of the things there.
Hmm.
So
Exactly. I
but
agree with you.
yeah, but I once again will applaud you for tackling this subject, but also tackling this subject from a different perspective to shed light on what's happening to young ladies. Because you said a third of the incarcerations are our black women, our young black girls.
One third
That's
of all female arrests that take place on our school campuses. Yes.
wow, wow, and that's huge. Those are huge numbers.
Yes.
And that's something that definitely needs to be um, brought to the light. Attention needs to be given to it. So thank you for that. And I wish like everybody who can read your book. And if you can't read, act like you can read it, but get the book. So as a parent, as a wife, as a woman, as a nurturer, um, just as an overall author, as a writer, what impact would you want not just this book, but what impact do you want your books to have on our readers, our community, and also like our different educators and people who are spending time with our youth? What impact do you want this book and all of your other books to have?
I I want them to remember the three P's, which are passion, which is pain, passion, and your purpose. I would hope that as a reader, when the readers read my book, they will see that they're not alone and that you can take whatever pain that you have. I had a lot of pain and I've lost a lot of loved ones in my family. The issue was heart disease. I took that pain and I've had back to back losses. So it's almost like before you can heal from one loss, there's another loss. It's like throwing salt in the wound, in a womb, wound, not womb. And then, so I would take that pain and it turns into passion because I'm very passionate about helping people who have experienced the different types of pain. And then, whatever your pain is, and you find passion, you can also find your purpose. And everything that has happened to you, you made it through, you made it over the hump, you made it past it. There's someone who's going through that who doesn't know how they will ever make it through. And
Right.
so I think it's incumbent upon each of us to reach back and help someone else who's going through something. That's part of your purpose. You're blessed to be a blessing. So reach back and help that person get through their pain. Tell them what you did. What did you do to feel better? And then, yes, it's normal that the pain keeps resurfacing, but this is what I did when that happened. So I would hope that anytime someone picks up one of my books, they'll be able to connect with the characters. They'll be and feel like they are those characters. They'll become a part of that world, and they'll learn something new and be able to take the information and help someone else with it.
There you go. There you go. Nah, that's lovely. That's beautiful. I think we should be using our talents to help leave this world in a better place than when it was when we got here. So you're doing exactly that. Yeah. So we definitely appreciate that. Patrick, you got that look on your face. So that means it's time for your favorite question.
Oh, I was like, what look I got on my face?
That look.
Okay. So, bang, 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 pow, 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 yep, yep, yep. So, if you were the all-knowing, all-powerful ruler of Zamunda and Wakanda and all of the seven seas or in the between, what would your message? What would you change about Black America, and what would your message to the people be?
I would certainly let every Black American know that their life matters. Every single one of them. Your life matters. Don't forget that. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe what you just know that your life matters, and whatever pain you've gone through, you can use that, turn it into passion, and use it, and you can accomplish the purpose of your life. No matter what, don't give up. Don't ever give up. You're not alone. We're in this together.
Yeah. And that's why I love that question. Because we get such a variety of answers. But we're in this together. Definitely in this together. Because the more we have those individual attitudes, the further we drift apart and the harder it is. So it's like the proverb, you can go fast alone, but you can go far together.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
you laid it out.
It's also like the proverb, remember who you are and share that story with others. That was what you said last time you were here.
Yes. That's all right.
You wanted to outquote me, huh? Okay.
Yes.
I see that you gonna outquote me with one of her own quotes.
Yes. Because I was gonna do something silly, but then I was like, but I can't out silly Joe. But what I can do is quote the guest. And then Joe just gotta shut up and say I won.
It's okay. It is all good. So I know people want to know now, for such a time as this, how can people get the book? Where's the book available at? How can people reach you? What's your website? What's your social media? All these different things. Somebody want to contact you, book you for a $20 million book deal. How do they contact
you? Okay, tell them if they want to contact me for a $20 million book deal, contact me right away at wmasondunn.com. I will repeat, wmasondunn.com. That is my website. I am on social media. You can look me up under Waletta Mason Dunn or at Cookie. My Gmail is walettadunn@gmail.com. And they can get my book at Amazon, online at Amazon, at the booksamillion.com, barnesandnoble.com. Or if you'd like an autographed copy, just go to my website at wmasondunn.com, and I'll be glad to send that out to you. And I really appreciate your support. And I would I'm excited about connecting with all my readers.
Yes. So go get the book and read it and enjoy it. Don't just get this book. Explore the other books she have. She definitely puts the work in. So you're going to enjoy everything. Patrick, you got any final parting shots?
Pow, 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 pow.
There you have it, folks. He gave us literal parting shots. I don't know how to follow that up. All I know is it's the Freedom Train podcast series. Definitely enjoyed this interview. Make sure y'all better have taken notes and tell everybody to watch this interview. I am Joseph Ward. He's Patrick Irvin. She's Miss Waletta Mason Dunn. And we are out of here. Peace out, people.